Sunday School Leader. We are continuing in the unit this week called Living Life Connected to Christ. We're in the third lesson called A Life of Trust out of John chapter 13, verse 36 through chapter 14, verse 6. The point of this lesson is we can trust Jesus because He is the way, the truth, and the life. We continue the story of Jesus on the night before His arrest, His execution, and burial. Now previously in our last couple of lessons, we looked at the washing of the feet that Jesus did. We looked at Judas left to go betray Jesus, and then Jesus said, "Where I'm going, you cannot go." Well, in our first section of Scripture, in chapter 13, verse 36 through 14:1, before we get in that, let's remember last week's lesson where Peter told John, he said, John, ask Jesus, who's going to betray you? But now here in these verses, Peter's speaking up for himself, and he asks, Jesus, where are you going? And Jesus repeats what he said at the end of verse 33, where I'm going, you cannot follow. But then he adds, but you will follow later. You see, Jesus was going to die, Peter, not yet. Then Jesus would, several weeks later, ascend into heaven. Peter, that would be later. Well, let's understand Peter's take on this, all right? He gave up his fishing job to follow Jesus 3 years earlier. He wasn't about to give up on him now. So I don't think this answer of, I'll follow you, I'll die for you, I don't think that was an answer of false piety. I really think he believed it. It was the true conviction of his dedication to Jesus when he said this. And he says, well, why can't I follow you? You know, Jesus, I'll die for you. Well, Jesus then famously predicts Peter's betrayal. Before the rooster crows 3 times, you're going to disown me. Now, it's possible that the other disciples may have wondered, you know, maybe it's Peter that Jesus was talking about that was going to betray Jesus and me, you know. And so maybe they were thinking that. Also, they may have been thinking, and if Peter's going to deny Jesus, and he's the number one guy, really, you know, because if you see all the times that the disciples are listed in Scripture, Peter is always listed first. Now, Judas is always listed last. Peter is always listed first in the list of the disciples. He was the main guy. If he can deny Jesus, what does that say about me? I'm not as strong as Peter. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I can deny. Maybe I'm the one that's going to betray him. You know, all these thoughts may be going through their mind. And so this had to be quite troubling, not only to Peter, but to the other 10 disciples that were left there as well. I believe that's why Jesus said in verse 14, verse 1, don't let your hearts be troubled. The word your and the word hearts, both plural. So he's talking to all 11 of these guys here, not just Peter. Now that's easy to say, isn't it? Just stop worrying. But Jesus just didn't tell them what not to do. He also told them what to do. What did he tell them? Trust me. Just as you trust God, trust me. Now in the next 2 verses, John 14 verses 2 and 3, a very familiar passage. I've read this many times at graveside services. In my Father's house are many rooms. King James Version says in many mansions. The Greek word here, it's best translated abode, you know, a place to abide. Here's the thing, we shouldn't get the idea that heaven's all about inheriting this luxurious, eternal home, this McMansion. It's not about that. Heaven is about abiding with God. Here's something to think about. A cardboard box in heaven for eternity is better than a mansion on earth for a few decades. All right? Whatever that abode is, whether that's a mansion, cardboard box, a room, whatever. Jesus is going to prepare that place for his followers. And here's the comforting part, especially to those 11 guys who's hearing this for the very first time. I'm coming back to get you so that you can be with me. Yes, our time together here is short. In fact, Jesus knows how short it is. It's about less than 24 hours away from his death. The disciples have no idea. And so our time's short. You can't follow me, but you can trust me. You can trust me. It'll be worth the wait. And like I said, that's what heaven is about. It's about abiding with God. So where Jesus is going, the disciples could not follow him there, but Jesus would return to take them there. Our last 3 verses are verses 4 through 6 of John 14. And Jesus ends his comforting statement, you know the way to the place I am going. And Thomas says, now Thomas here, he's not doubting Thomas yet. That's going to be after the resurrection. He's unsure Thomas at this point. Thomas says, we don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way? If you tell us where we're going, we'll figure out the directions. And if you tell us the directions, we'll follow them and end up at your destination. So Jesus, tell us something. Jesus replies, you want to know the way? I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Several points about Jesus' response here. Very famous response. Jesus' destination is not a physical place, but a person. It's God. And the route to that destination, the route to that person is another person. It's Jesus. Jesus' claim here, it's exclusive. He is the way, not a way. He's not a road sign to point the way. He is the way. He's also the truth. He just doesn't embody truth or have the truth. He is the truth. He is true. He's the true plumb line by which we can look to as our example of what's right. He's also the life. In John chapter 1, verse 3, we see that Jesus is the agent, or Jesus was the agent of creation. Jesus created life. And since only life can produce life, and Jesus created all the life on earth, Jesus is the origin of life. He is the life. And the life that he came to give us is an abundant life that we see in John 10:10. And also to further show the exclusivity, he says this, no one comes to the Father except through me, except through Jesus. Jesus is the only way to get to God the Father. That's the destination. See, a life connected to Christ is one that trusts Jesus. As we close, here's an important thought to remember. If we can trust Jesus with our eternity, can we trust him with tomorrow? Do we do that? If we trust Jesus to keep our salvation, do we trust him enough to follow his call, whatever that is? I mentioned last week about those 12 points of the Boy Scout law, and we looked at loyalty last week. Well, the first of those 12 points is that a scout is trustworthy. Jesus embodies trustworthiness. And trust is knowing that I can believe someone or something based on previous experience. And just to give you an example of a chair, if I sit in a chair that I've never sat in before, I'm putting my faith in that chair. Faith is the evidence of things unseen, right, as Hebrews 11:1 says. But if I've sat in this chair day after day after day, I'm trusting the chair based on previous experience. So yeah, trust is I believe someone, I believe something based on previous experience. And Jesus is calling on his disciples to trust him because they've been with him for 3 years. They've witnessed his miracles. They've never been disappointed. Jesus asks us to do the same thing. Trust him. We've trusted him with our eternity. Let's trust him with our tomorrow as well. Let's encourage our classes to do the same. Thank you guys for watching. See you next week.